أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Now we continue on the discussion with the multiplicity of gods and the problem with it. Why can't there be more than one God? Because remember, we're not looking on the narrations only, we're looking at it from a logical perspective. And one of the things we look at here is if there are a multiplicity of gods, there are multiple gods, then none of these gods would have an upper hand because they're all gods. If no God has an upper hand, this becomes impossible. Why is that? Because a God should be unique. When we say that a God is, they have to be able to do everything that other gods cannot do. But if they are the unique God, then they become that God. So we go back to there being one God. Another problem that also arises here is if, say, they're all gods, they're all powerful, then each of these gods will be able to prevent another God from doing something. Now, this becomes a problem. Because if they're able to prevent the other gods from doing something, and every God is all powerful, then this will contradict that God being able to do whatever they want. So if they're preventing everything, then they too would be prevented. Once again, this becomes something that's impossible. That's either they're completely able, and if they're all completely able, then at the same token, it's like when you say, what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? This is what it becomes like. It's impossible. It can't happen in this case. So we are in need, or there has to be a God that is needless. And it must be someone that, this one must be self-sufficient and needless at the same time. That they can do what they want. And if that is the case, it can only be one. It can't be more than one, as we have shown in many arguments. Now, if every existing thing, say, every existence that we have is not needless in essence, that means there's no contingent existence. Like if we say there's no existence at all. So if everyone that exists is, or everything that exists, all existence is not needless, that means they're dependent. But upon whom are they dependent? So if we have these multiple gods that are not independent because we don't want them to affect each other, if they aren't self-living, if they aren't self-subsisting, they can't give life or subsistence to others. This is the problem. So there has to be that contingent existence that all other existences are relying upon. Because if they are lacking, because they need each other, because there's multiple gods as we mentioned, then if they are lacking, they're not able to give. Why? The saying, فَاقَدُ الشَّيْء لَا يَعْطِي. If we say someone is lacking, they cannot give. How am I supposed to be able to give life when I lack the ability to give life to myself? So there has to be a contingent existence. This chain of need must end at a self-sufficient, in essence, from all dimensions, and that is God. That's where we always go back to that singularity, that one God. So God is present without any limitation whatsoever, because every limited being is existent with limitation of that existence. So if I'm limited, I am limited. I have a limitation to what my existence is composed of. What my existence is, that's my limitation. As a human being, my limitations, I have mortality, I have deficiencies in certain things, strengths in certain things, but it's limited just to that existence. However, the existence which has no limitation, which is God, has no limitation, must be one for which a second cannot be conceived. So if there are two gods, with this, there's no limitation. We go back to the argument mentioned before. For me to have a second God, where there's two gods, if I want to accept this in any way, this would have me limiting both gods, because it would be necessary for me to limit both gods for them to both exist, because the second has to serve that same purpose as God. In a way, they both will complement each other. Thus, by saying that they will both complement each other, they both have to be limited. So this God must be limitless, has no limitations. So if I said there's two of them, then there is a limitation somewhere for the second one to exist. As we go back to the previous argument, where one will have to be able to do all things, then the other one must be lacking. Therefore, the one that's able to do all things is God and the other is not. So we're running around with the same argument over and over again. The other thing is, everything that is composed is in need of what it is composed of. So if we say God is a composition of existence and non-existence, let's say that he is composed of existence and non-existence, then God would be in need of an impossible thing. So if God's a composition or is being made up, then God becomes in need of what's impossible. So if God is composed of something that does exist and something that doesn't exist, this becomes impossible. It doesn't become. God is unique in his essence and his attributes, and he has no second to him, neither composed nor conceived. So we go back that you cannot make God, nor can we have any idea of there being any other God. There's no concept that I can think of where a God can exist in this manner. And this is why we go back to the Tawhid, the monotheism. It is necessary for God to have absolute power and authority over all things. And there has to be one supreme creator. Why? Because he needs to be able to repel all opposition in an absolute manner. It's not like, hold on, let me negotiate with this person, or let's see how I want to sort this problem, let me talk to that person. We don't have some summit where he sits with other gods and they discuss. No, the creator has to have absolute power. He has to have the ultimate decision in the heavens. And his inability to repel would make it a deficiency. And the deficiency is impossible, because then he wouldn't be God. And because this is due to the necessity of his existence. Because imagine if he was deficient, if God was deficient in any way, if the creator, the one that controlled everything, was deficient in any way, then he would have the inability to even exist in his own right. So obviously all this discussion is very philosophical and a very logical discussion, but it's necessary for people to understand that when we talk about God, that God has to be all-powerful, and God has to be supreme, and God cannot share his dominion with anybody else. And the way we can prove this is the uniqueness of the creation of God. It demonstrates a perfect maker. Remember in the previous lessons, inshallah we will record them later, we mentioned the teleological argument, the purpose for things. The way you look at the creation, you know that there is a unique and perfect creator to have this. And if I had partnership, it would necessitate like robbing this perfection. You'd be taking this perfection away. How? Because of the arguments we brought before. They'd have to sit and deliberate. They'd have to sit and discuss. Then you'd see certain things that wouldn't work, things that wouldn't coexist. The way the world, the harmony of the universe, and how things work are so well fine-tuned and perfect in the way that this whole universe exists. It would not exist because there's two people making those decisions. So this independence makes God self-sufficient. So that's how you know it's only one God. And God's independence also shows that he's above the need of having company. or need of people, not like us being social, a social existence. Humans need other humans to interact. We have in Arabic a saying, Al-Jannah bala nas la tandas. If there's a paradise without people, you wouldn't enter it. No one wants to live on their own. No man is an island. But Allah Azza wa Jal is not a person. Allah Azza wa Jal is beyond understanding. It's not someone that someone could even sit and fathom God. God's the creator of the universe. Even when we tend to use God in a masculine sense, it's not because he's a man. This is the way that we speak. Who Allah is saying that he is God does not mean that he is a man, nor that he is masculine. Allah Azza wa Jal is beyond even understanding this. If I said God needed company, this is also a form of need. And it's also because you need people to be around you. It's also shows that the God is lacking and deficient, because is he feeling lonely? He needs people around him so he can feel attached. So, and also to say that God needs permission to act or to approve or to support or to advise him in his affairs is showing deficiency in God. Allah Azza wa Jal is the one God. وحده لا شريك له. He has no partner, he has no associate, he has no advisor, and everything is subservient to God. Whether it is the greatest creation of all, Rasul Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, he reminds us in our prayers when we say وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا عَبْدُهُ وَرَسُولُهُ. Allah, that Muhammad is the servant of Allah and the messenger of Allah. He's there to serve this purpose, but Allah is unique. He is one and with no partner.
الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.